Alright, y'all. Hello and welcome back. It is Monday, which typically means back to work for at least most folks. And that's the theme of this video. We're looking at the truth about work culture and work-life balance in Europe. Now, specifically in this case, this is a software engineer working in Sweden. And I believe she has previously worked in the US. At least that's from what I understand. This comes to us from a channel called Vanessa Vingård, and this will be linked down below so you can check out this whole video uninterrupted and browse her stuff. We'll only be taking a look at a little bit of her video today and then some other things as well.
You're treated as an adult. I think Spotify said it best. Sweden's work culture is one of a flat hierarchy, so they expect everyone to...
Our employees are not children. Spotify, which I recently learned, a year or two ago, is a Swedish company, I believe, will keep remote working.
Sweden's work culture is one of a flat hierarchy, so they expect everyone to share their thoughts and ideas because it is very important that everyone be heard no matter their experience level. What I've noticed is this flat hierarchy creates a sense of trust and unity between developers and management. For me, when I'm in meetings, I feel that I am able to express myself, even if those thoughts and opinions are more negative and maybe go against what, say, the product owner says. It's still very much encouraged to explain my point of view and not feel that if I say something that goes against what others are saying, that I will be penalized or there will be some negative consequences for me kind of saying what I think.
Yeah, she makes a good point. Like, this is something that can probably vary greatly in the US. So it's not all doom and gloom as always, but it seems like some jobs you might have freedom to do this. You might have, kind of the ability to input your ideas and your views on things and have it be decently or well received. And of course, other jobs, you're just a worker. Like, basically, shut up and go to work. If your position isn't, this or that, why are you weighing in on this? That type of negative type of workplace environment, just in general, probably is a lot more common in the U.S. than it is in most other places. And unfortunately, like I said, it's not all doom and gloom, but that negative workplace is probably becoming more and more common over the years here. Whereas, that kind of high standard of workplaces is just done better, right? In Sweden, I imagine so.
One thing that I really appreciate is every time my manager is in a meeting, there is no power dynamic.
See, that's amazing.
It's just two people doing their jobs in the same team.
Yeah, flat hierarchy should be a standard, you would think, in a workplace. I get there's different positions and stuff, but no one should feel worthless or feel way less than just because of, not as many years of experience or whatever job position they hold. It would be nice if this was not the norm. And unfortunately, this might be the norm in the US these days.
Another reflection that I have about the work culture here in Sweden is employees appreciate when you have a different skill set, background, and experience. In my own experience, since living here in Sweden, I switched careers. What I noticed was when I was applying for jobs and interviewing with people, employers really appreciated that I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in business. I would say here in Sweden, there is a bigger emphasis on being more of a generalist and knowing kind of different things so that you can bring that perspective and that knowledge into the company. The employers that I have interviewed with really appreciated that my background was outside of computer science.
See, that's cool,
and this also
right?
leads me...
Her saying that they can view different skills as an asset, even though it might not directly correlate with that position, that's a good thing. And good on Sweden or Swedish companies for kind of realizing that. Again, why isn't that the norm here?
Something else that I've experienced is it's really encouraged to expand your knowledge and your skill set in Sweden. The culture really supports it and employers support it.
That's
Actually,
awesome.
Earlier this year, I was collaborating with an embedded developer and a cloud developer, and I explained to my manager that I really thought it would benefit me if I knew more of the hardware side. So not that I wanted to become an embedded developer, but I wanted to understand the entire architectural flow because I felt that it would allow me to be a better full stack engineer and help my two colleagues in accomplishing what we were trying to make happen, basically. I just basically explained to my manager that I would like to be more involved with the hardware meetings and discussions. And so if that was okay with her, that would be the reason why she would see me in some of those meetings. She completely understood and agreed that that would be best for not only myself, but my colleagues and the success of the product. And so it was completely supported. At my company, it is also overall working in Sweden, you have a lot of autonomy and ownership of your work.
Big.
It's very much encouraged that the team and you as an individual shape the way that you want to work. My team regularly has retrospectives, and I know that a lot of software engineering teams do. But I think the difference is when you work in Sweden, you have this sense of unity that I was speaking about earlier. So you feel comfortable in really outlining what needs to be improved. And so my manager sits in on every retrospective that we have, and it is she who takes these action points at the end of the meeting and ensures that our feedback is heard and that we try to improve our way of working. I don't think my team would have this continuous improvement that we have if the work culture did not support it.
Yeah, that's a cool one as well, because again, the work culture here typically isn't going to be like that, right? For most companies. Now, you might find some awesome offices or companies that kind of follow that similar openness and that model, right? But again, it's going to be more rare here, right? There are great places to work here in the U.S., right? It's just as a whole, our work culture is terrible. Our standards are terrible. Our worker rights are just not up there with other countries, right? So, like, again, I don't always want to make it sound like it's horrible here across the board, but unfortunately, when it comes to work stuff, we are kind of one of the worst, if not the worst. And it is very frustrating. And
one thing you will not find in Sweden is hustle culture. So while we have a lot of success,
we lead the world in for sure, and that's not a good thing to lead in my opinion, right? Yeah, like I always hear it from Americans, oh, we have the best GDP. We've just visited this very recently on the channel. Yeah, that doesn't mean squat to most people, right? Yeah, we know we have a lot of money in the U.S. We know we have a lot of big companies, yada, yada. Unfortunately, to most people, that doesn't mean much. And the hustle culture is very crazy here. You have to hustle all day, work long hours, work overtime, work holidays, work the weekends, right? And at the end of the day, for most people, does it really help? Not really, right? You're hustling to make that CEO even richer. That's at least what it feels like. And when you start hearing, what other countries and companies work, like their schedule, and they still put out, good work, they still put out a good product, it's frustrating, right? The over hustle culture here is way too strong, and it's bad.
Companies here, and we have a lot of hardworking and ambitious people. The companies here do not expect people to work at the detriment of their own health. Employers here understand that work is just one part of your life, and your job does not have to be your entire identity. Employers also understand that if an employee is relaxed, has good sleep, is able to enjoy hobbies outside of work, and is able to commit to their family responsibilities, then when they do come into work, they will be much more motivated and in a happy mood.
Yes, workers that don't have to work their butt off. They don't have to live at work. They don't have to, their whole existence isn't working, and sleeping, working, sleeping, working, sleeping. What do you know? Workers are happier when they get to work and then have an actual work-life balance, right? They have time for their family. They have time to get away for a little bit. They have time to work on their house. When they're sick, they don't have to worry about losing their job. Who knew that would make a happier worker and therefore making an actual better worker, a more productive worker?
Able to contribute and do a good job when they are at work. One thing that was quite surprising to me was in one of my one-on-ones, my manager asked if the workload was manageable. That was just kind of shocking to me because it's just never a question I've been asked before.
You would never hear that.
It was important.
You would never hear that in the U.S. ever.
To her, and it's important to all
managers. They just dump a load of assignments on you, and that's it. There's no, is this good? Is this manageable for you? How are you doing? Yeah, no. Just do it.
Employees feel that their workload is maintainable and not overwhelming. Companies here offer free fruit, coffee, and tea. It's also not uncommon for companies to allow you to bring your pets to the office.
Whoa.
So it's very common to see a colleague's dog sitting next to your desk or roaming around the office. Fika is also sacred in this country. So it is very common to have a fika in the morning or a fika in the afternoon or both, because let's face it, Swedes are fueled by coffee. Fika is usually 10 to 15 minutes where you just sit and talk with your colleagues over a nice warm cup of coffee. This time is usually used to talk about anything other than work.
That's
there
awesome.
are some teams who have made it mandatory that they do not discuss work. So while...
Wow, again, what a simple concept that goes a long way. Also, how cool is that? Free fruit, free like healthy things, right? Free, what did she say, water or coffee? I can't remember, but it's so cool, right? Again, maybe one of the best places in the U.S. to work for might offer that kind of free amenities. That's not going to be the norm, right? 1 out of 30 companies might offer that. So for anyone out there like, oh, well, I worked at so-and-so in the U.S., so we had that. Yeah, that's the rarity, okay? It's not the norm.
One of the biggest benefits that Sweden offers is what's called a leave of absence. So if someone living in Sweden wanted to try out creating their own company, they didn't want to quit their job, they could take a leave of absence and they would be guaranteed their role or a similar role in the company if they decided to come back. Of course, the employer must approve this leave of absence, but as I mentioned earlier, it's very encouraged here to expand your knowledge and try out things. So employers are very encouraging for people to take a leave of absence, not only to start their own company, but for backpacking across Europe or going back to university. This leave of absence provides you a way to try to start your own company if you have an idea as a software engineer. But
that sounds like such a pipe dream, like something people would talk about at the bar or something as like, man, imagine if you could just take a month off work and not worry about it and go travel around the country or around Europe or whatever, right? Like, oh, that is amazing. That's even a thing anywhere. Definitely not a thing here. It's one of those weird things. For example, traveling around the U.S. is an amazing experience, right? And sadly, a lot of Americans can't do that. They just don't get to do that until we're very late in their life or maybe never. And that's one of those things. It's like, so the U.S. touts, it's so beautiful. There's so many places to see. All the states are different, yada, yada. Well, how are people supposed to do that? Only very lucky people. I consider myself very lucky. I've seen a lot of the U.S. through road trips and stuff. And a lot of people I know have not. It's hard for people to really make that happen. Meanwhile, in other countries, you can just take time off work and not have to worry about your job because they know it would be good for you to go see some other countries, go see the neighboring countries and go on a road trip or go backpacking, right? It's so cool to hear, and it's also so wild to hear because that is a pipe dream here for most people.
But not feel that you are going to lose everything if it were for some reason to fail. To paid time off, as some companies do in the US. The difference here is that everyone is entitled to vacation, and by law, you must take vacation. So the government really encourages employees to take vacation.
Wow. You heard that? That is the golden word here in the US. The taboo word. Oh, you haven't worked your 10 or 15 years. You don't get much vacation, if any. Maybe in your first couple years, you don't get any vacation. Good luck out there. See you Monday. Right?
While companies here do not offer unlimited paid time off, as some companies do in the US, the difference here is that everyone is entitled to vacation, and by law, you must take vacation. As you may have guessed, I personally really like this. I know companies in the US say their unlimited paid time off is like a huge perk of working at the company, but then
I've never even heard of that.
An opportunity.
That must be rare in the US. And again, some companies, there's a few gems, diamonds in the rough here. There's some companies that might try and have more kind of foreign business models where they give their workers lots of time off and they give them vacation and stuff. And that's great, right? That's a net positive. But that's just so rare, right? And it's because it comes from the competitive nature here still. Now, that's a good use of competitive nature. Like I said, there might be some companies that are like trying to get workers to work for them so bad that they're willing to give them lots of perks and lots of time off opportunities compared to other companies that follow traditional American hustle culture. It's very cool. It's just super rare. And, for me personally, I've never even had that option before.
For employees
working.
to actually use this unlimited PTO. And not only that, if you do, then you're kind of looked down and you're not considered hardworking and that you're hurting the team or the company. And
if you take, God forbid, you take a day off even, but especially taking vacation, you're definitely going to get looks at the minimum. And even confronted by people, right? You're lazy. What are you doing? Boy, you really hurt us when you were gone. Like, wow, I'm flattered, guys. Like, really, is this company going to fold if I take a week off? Like, get real, like, that's ridiculous. The fact that that's standardized in other countries is just awesome. And it's a net benefit for everyone because you don't have to be lucky enough to get into that cool company that lets you take time off. No, it's everyone has to take time off. It's literally mandated. So that's really cool. And the fact that taking time off is just that, taking time off, you're not usually going to be looked down upon for it is obviously a nice, refreshing take to hear.
You also need your manager to approve it. So while we don't have unlimited paid time off, what some companies do here is increase the number of weeks that you have paid vacation. So as you become more senior here in Sweden, you can have 6 or more paid vacation weeks.
That's amazing. And look,
as a parent
let's not get it twisted. You should be rewarded, at least in my mind, you should be rewarded in different ways if you work hard, right? Being a good employee, working hard should get you rewarded, should get you progress in a company, more pay in a company, whatever it is, right? Being rewarded for being somewhere for 10 years, for 20 years, should have rewards, right? You should have more time off than the guy that started yesterday. I do believe in that to a degree. You should get rewarded for hard work and for loyalty. But it's just taking that hustle culture to the max. That's the problem. And that's what they've done here in the U.S. Again, maybe working in the U.S., at least from what I've heard, 50 years ago was awesome, right? You got rewarded for loyalty to a company. You could work 30 years at a company and retire and get a pension for the rest of your life. That kind of stuff is almost extinct here now. That's the problem. The problem is we're here now, and now America is a terrible work culture, even if it used to be great. It's just not anymore. It's just not the norm.
Working in Sweden, you will be eligible for
big,
maternity
I'm a parent,
and paternity leave, and also for VAB. VAB is for when your child is sick, so you use a VAB day so that you can stay home and care for them.
That's not a thing here at all.
You will be paid 80% of your salary when you use a VAB day. I know that there are many benefits of being a working parent in Sweden, but I don't think I'm the best source of information for that, as I am child-free by choice. However, I can say that a lot of my colleagues have children, and I have seen kind of their experience. And one thing I notice is, again, employees who have children are just treated like adults. Often my colleagues will need to leave around a certain time in the afternoon to go pick up their children, and that's perfectly fine and accepted because employers understand that you have responsibilities outside of your job. And again, the expectation is that after they pick up their child and they go home, they will continue their work or what needs to be done at home. For me personally, while I'm not a parent, I do have 2 cats, and one cat specifically this year needed to go to the vet several times, and it was never an issue.
Wow.
So
even for a pet, she got time off granted to her, and yes, go help your cat out, take it to the vet, whatever needs to be done. You're not going to lose your job, right?
Although my cats are not human children, I was still treated the same as other people who have children, and that I needed to leave to go pick my cat up from the vet or take her to the vet.
Yeah. Unless you work at an amazing place here, most workplaces in the U.S., they're going to be like, they could give a shit less about your cat. You're not going to leave to do that, right? Like, that's just not a thing here. That's freaking awesome to hear, though.
And it was perfectly fine, and I didn't need to prove anything or be
Wow.
questioned. I
Wow.
was trusted that I would finish my work when I was home.
Yeah, it's pretty freaky, the fact that, when I had a couple kids, my first two kids, I was still working at an assembly plant where they make vehicles, right? An automotive assembly plant. And I tell you what, I literally, I don't know how to describe it. It was just like weird because they don't really have a policy on that stuff. So going to have a kid and obviously be there for my wife and be in the hospital and you don't know what it's going to be like having a child is just it's an amazing experience, but it's really a crazy experience, right? It's not something most people experience much, if at all. Something that happens only a couple times in your whole life, and it's always new and it's scary, right? And the fact that I had to think the whole time about like, wow, I don't really have much days off, right? I just don't at my job. And I had to worry about that in the back of my head is very annoying. Like I shouldn't even have to think about my job when I'm supporting my wife and having a kid, a brand new baby, right? Unfortunately for many Americans, that is in your head the whole time. And it's distracting and it's annoying. But that was in my head. Am I going to be okay at work? How's this going to work? How many days are they docking my pay? Am I literally going to go back and they're going to fire me because I was gone for a couple days? Like those are all things that go through an American's mind. And it just sounds crazy maybe to people watching this from outside the U.S., but that's exactly what I was thinking. That was a great video. We only watched about half of that. So if you want to finish that up, go ahead and support her. Check her out in the link in the description. Watch that whole video and check out her stuff. She's, sounds like she's worked in the U.S. and Sweden, and definitely sounds like Sweden has some nice, refreshing changes for her. And I think that is just awesome, right? Now, I'm going to show you some final things before we leave, just to kind of, blow your mind a little bit, and not in a good way, unfortunately. Here are some just random things you can find. Americans don't get paid vacation or holidays, as in that's not standard, right? There might be great jobs, great companies that really do kind of throw you a bone here in the U.S., but unfortunately, it's not many. Those are few and far between, and it's not the norm, nor is it federally mandated. You're not protected here basically at all. So the United States is the only advanced economy in the world that does not guarantee its workers paid vacation and paid holidays, okay? This is job to job. You might have jobs that do help you out, right? And give you some good holidays off. They might give you a good vacation package, but it's not the norm, nor is it mandated at all. So you don't get any guarantees here. This means employees can work for months or even years without any break, lacking the work-life balance that is important for their physical and mental well-being. We're all humans at the end of the day. Isn't your physical health and especially your mental health, isn't that, what would you say, important? Isn't that like a very high priority? You would think so, but apparently not in the American workforce. It's not. This is real. This is literally real. I have, I could show receipts. I don't even feel like it. I could show receipts to prove this. Yes, when natural disasters happen, like tornadoes, hurricanes, that type of stuff, that happens pretty often at various places in the U.S., people still are told to go to work, even though they know this stuff is coming. As Hurricane Milton, this is from 2024, as Hurricane Milton prepares to circumcise the United States, please remember your job isn't worth it. If your area is under an evacuation order, please evacuate. Even if your shitty job is telling you to stay and show up for work, please stay safe. And that's sad that people have to be told this, and then they have to make that decision. Because unfortunately, companies don't seem to care, and they might tell a whole factory of workers or a whole office of workers to show up at a place, even if there's a warning, a stay-at-home warning or an evacuation warning based on the weather service, right? Like it's like they live in their own world, and the workers are just like they, I guess, don't have their own lives. Their life is to be at work at all times, even in a natural disaster. You can't make this stuff up. This is workplace culture in the U.S. This comment sums it up perfectly. The fact that this has to be said in the first place really says something about how well businesses treat their mules. Exactly. This one is really eye-opening, right? We've kind of compared this before. At what point Do Americans riot like the French, if ever? Unfortunately, it seems like never, right? We have enough to riot about, but people just don't, I don't know. No one in a big country full of 350 million people, we can't seem to come together and, protest crazy stuff in this country. We had layoffs at my multinational Fortune 500 tech company recently, and one team was split in San Francisco and France. The engineers in San Fran called into their morning meeting, and then an hour later got a call from HR with a return shipping label for their hardware. No notice, and a week of severance. No notice. Good morning, you're gone. Here's a week of severance. Good luck out there. The team in France, legally, they had to be placed on garden leave for a month, paid. And then the company had to prove they weren't replacing them in the near future, and it was a legitimate downsizing in which the employees couldn't be reassigned and keep their jobs. If the company is found fraudulent at any point in the process, they have to pay the dismissed worker a year of salary. We need to start writing like the French when they are crossed. Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, look at the difference. It's really eye-opening, almost a slap in the face for the American workers there. Now, of course, we have the wage gaps. Gotta love this, right? I'll let you just read this by yourself. The rich have become extremely rich in just the last 12 years, while in that same time span, minimum wage has, barely moved at all, if not at all. In some states, like in my state, it's gone up just a little bit. That's it. Now, of course, the cost of living's gone up this much, so that little bit of raise, doesn't help. But hey, it's the thought that counts, right? And we'll end it on a banger here. Inmates are the only population in the United States with a constitutional right to health care. Sounds like a bad dream when you say it out loud, right? That sounds extremely and backwards. But that is how we do it here. And I guess 350 million people are okay with it, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'm not okay with it. I think a lot of Americans aren't, but apparently not enough aren't okay with it. And that's our work culture here. I mean, there's millions of stories we could share. People scared to call into work. People afraid to take a day off. People getting fired because they got in a car crash on the way to work, and their crappy boss didn't they couldn't reach their boss, and then, they went to the hospital, their car's on a tow truck, and they get fired from work, right? Like, there are crazy scenarios like this that we could read, and maybe at another time we will. But I would definitely look forward to your comments on this, what some of your workplace experience has been like, and, maybe what country or region you're from. And I thought this was pretty interesting, though, getting a more direct, American who's actually worked here and then is working there in Sweden in this case. And instead of broad, topics, but actually getting someone's, actual testimony and to what it's like and the differences. I thought it's pretty awesome. And working in Sweden sounds nice, right? Lots of protections that you would think would be standard in any developed nation, but somehow are not in just, one of them. Hope you enjoyed that. I really do appreciate you being here. And, that's going to be it for this one. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Until next time, y'all. Catch you later.